Good morning and welcome to Signature Morning. I'm Godwin Sunday. Over the years in Nigeria, the issues around corruption and corrupt practices has become a very tough issues to handle. From the federal government through to the state government and down to the local government, there's been this conflict of interest on what is corruption, who is to be blamed for corrupt practices, and what are the various instrumentalities that leads to corruption. Well, this morning, the show will be taking a new dimension as we will be talking to attorney generals across the Federation to tell us about their thought lines on corruption and some of the policies and strategies the state government at various levels are putting in place to fight corruption and end the corruption game once and for all. Now, today we will not only be talking to attorney generals of different states, we will also try to know what's happening in the fight against corruption in the various states to the various attorney generals that we'll be talking to even this morning. Behind me, you can see it is a one-day roundtable workshop for state attorney generals where they will be discussing and brooding ideas and thought lines on what corruption stands for and what corruption represents at various quarters. We hope at the end of today, we'll be able to get an effective communique that will be implemented at state-based, and also states will be able to reach some conclusions that will further enhance the fight against corruption in all walks of life. We will be talking to various attorney generals on what they are doing in their respective states in this hall today. But let me not keep you waiting at this point. All I can say is let's go in as we talk to attorney generals of different states. I am with Professor Barrister Fidelis. Is from Benue State. Is the Attorney General of Benue State, and we're talking right now about pressing issues. But then let's talk to you, Prof, at this point in time about the driving force. When it has to do with implementations of corruption, of course, we've had policies, fantastic policies that centers around corruption, but the implementation has become a challenge. So let's take it back to Benue State. What are some of the strategies being put in place to ensure that people in Benue State, the fight against corruption in Benue State is won even at the grassroots level?
Yeah, by way of proper introduction, because I know a lot of people are listening to us, I am Fidelis Bemsen, the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice of Benue State. Now, let's try to look into the practicality away from the theories. You know, a lot of theories have been propounded on how to fight corruption. We have paid a lot of lip services on how to fight corruption, but let's draw it a little bit practical. Now, if you come to Benue State, you understand that most of these, particularly the issues that deal with ICPC, there are issues that relate with misappropriation of funds. Now, when you come to Benue State, we have put together fiscal responsibility law. We have put together some laws that actually guide from the first release of the fund for a project to the last implementation of that project. Now, when an issue of misappropriation of this fund is reported, either be it at ICPC or any other anti-graft agency, first, in we the Benue people will look at it that corrupt person is an ingredient, a bad one that will spoil the entire society. We are not in the practice of holding back Benue State officers who may be linked to the transaction that lead to this corruption. All that we need from any anti-corruption agency, you need a Benue State appointee, or you need a Benue State employee to appear to make statement relating to any misappropriation of funds or funds that have been found to have been stolen from the government coffer. You need to write to the office of the SSG, who write to my office at the Attorney General. We'll look at the law, we'll look at the offense, we'll look at the involvement of the person, and then we send the person to get there with the lawyer to sit down and allow the person, listen to the person, allow the person make his own or her own statement as relates to the transaction. You know, most of the times when corruption is become a problem in fighting it, when the other actors, as a state and then a state officer is invited by ICPC or EFCC, and we decide to shield the person that you were not going to attend it, is a very first big problem. But on our own side, we rather expose the person to appear within the confines of the law, within the confines of the law, and I repeat, to making sure that the person is interrogated in line with the provisions of all the laws, to see to it that the issues is exposed. If the person found wanting, yes, he'll be tried. If the person is not found wanting, he get back to status quo. So that's the practical, transparent approach that the Benue people, under the administration of His Excellency Reverend Father Hyacinth earlier, have adopted. He's one person that will not shield anybody. So his own transparency policy has translated into making sure that nobody is left covered as far as anti-corruption fight is concerned.
All right. So lastly, before I let you go, let's talk general about attorney generals. It is assumed that what it has to do with profile cases and corruption, attorney generals tend to turn black eyes. When it has to do with profile, how correct is this statement?
No, the statement is not correct. First, the attorney general, you are attorney general of the state. When you are said to be attorney general of the state, you are not attorney general of your political party. You are not attorney general of the government that brought you on board, but you are attorney general of the state. And when you're talking about the state, you're talking about everybody in the state. You are even talking about the accused. You are talking about the public that is accusing the person. You are talking about the institution that are fighting this corruption. Now, as attorney general, you are duty bound to making sure that everybody is protected, everybody is seen within the ambit of the law. That's why the practicality is that nobody is above the law. But you look at that Lady Justina, she closes her eyes, she hold a way and then hold a sword. Why she closes her eyes is that there is no favor. There's no favor for everybody. So the attorney general is supposed to appear to making sure that the rule of law prevails. So you're not just attorney general for Ministry of Justice where you are operating from. You're not just attorney general to your governor who you're working with, but you are attorney general of the state. So every legal issue surrounding the state, being it from the traditional rulers, being it from the church, being it from the mosque, being it from every aspect of the society, you are properly placed to look into it. Like I say, even the accused person that is being dragged to court, it's your duty as Attorney General to making sure that he is not maltreated. He is treated within the ambit of the law.
All right, thank you so much, Prof. Commissioner of Justice in Benue State. I wanted to appreciate you for being on Signature Morning this morning, sir.
Thank you so much.
Well, we are really trying our very best, and you recall that recently the Anambra State governor was proclaimed the best in transparency, the best governor in transparency. That in sometime this year. And we are the bill on establishment of states commission of the financial corrupt and financial commission is in the House of Assembly currently. And you observe that we have would I say, a very transparent procurement system. And you have to you remain accountable. Whatever money you spend, you must retire it. You must retire it in the state, no matter who you are. There must be retirement, and whatever expenditure you incur must have a budget line in the state. You know, the governor is an economist and one-time central bank governor, so he knows the dynamics of economics, and we are putting it in application in the state. Well, you know that the judgment was just passed, and every state is clamoring to comply with the decision of the Supreme Court. And there's a provision, I think, in our law, local government law, that provides that the state government has the power to checkmate what happens, the financial management of the local government. So I think with that, we'll be able to monitor closely how the money is being spent at the local government level. We all know that corruption is endemic in our society today, everywhere, especially at the state level, government level, state government level, federal government level, and local government level. We are here to brainstorm. You can see that Almost all attorney generals are here to show you the importance of this topic under discussion. Our governor knows the importance. That was why they released us. Ordinarily, we would have had our ESCO today, but he mandated me to be here to brainstorm with my colleagues to see how we can stamp out this menace that has eaten deep into the fabrics of the society. So we are here to look at ways we can to identify the causes of corruption, because when you identify the causes of corruption, that will be able to tackle it. So we'll look at the causes. What are the actually causes of corruption? Then how do we curb it? We look at our institutions. What is happening? Is there transparency in the system? How do we do procurement in the states? Is it transparent? Is it digital? Then what happens to whistleblowers? How do the state governments protect whistleblowers? Then we look at our institution, how we have to strengthen our institution, especially the judiciary, to ensure that they are there to say the truth, expose whoever is corrupt. Then we should also find a way of making sure that our money that has been corruptly taken over by some corrupt politicians are brought back, and then effective management of such money, because there's no point bringing back money that has been corruptly taken from the states and then you mismanage it again. And then we also there should be reorientation. The youths, as they are growing up, it should be part and parcel of the curriculum. They should be made to know that you should be accountable for whatever you do. So from the youth, we start grooming them to be transparent in all they do. Then we'll get it right at the end of the day. It's not going to be an easy task. It's going to be an uphill task. But I know that we are not yet where we are supposed to be. But we will soon get there. So far, there's a political will. We're here for a purpose. And whatever communique we reach, you are supposed to take it home and enforce it if we have not started enforcing it. As I told you, we have most of them in place in Anambra State.
The issue of corruption in Nigeria, like you have said, has become a recurring subject of discussion. And it looks as if it's now a talk show. You know, we just like to come and talk about it. So we should move issues of corruption from mere discussions to action. In Oyo State, for example, we have an anti-corruption agency, Oyo State Anti-Corruption Agency, Oyaka, that is set up to do the same role, to perform the same role that the EFCC is performing at the federal level, to tackle corruption at our public sector organizations in Oyo State, every variant of corruption that you can imagine. And the agency is doing a very good job at that. Now, we have other institutional arrangements to curb corruption at our ministries. We just designed a program to regulate services at the different ministries in Oyo State. We recently set up a rule of law enforcement authority, and corruption is about breach or violation of the rule of law in the financial sector. So the rule of law enforcement authority in Oyo State, part of its mandate is to see to how to tackle corruption in the state. So in a nutshell, those are some of the things we are doing at the moment in Oyo State. Oyo State is not relenting in the fight against corruption. And I don't know the indices applied in this year's assessment, but efforts are continuously ongoing to tackle corruption in Oyo State. And my governor is an engineer first and foremost, who believes in technology, who believes in data. When you talk to Governor Seyi Makinde, he's not emotional about anything. He's data-driven, he's scientific in approach. So all the solutions we are introducing in Oyo State, they are technologically enabled. And you'll find out over time what we are doing. Today's meeting is not going to teach us what to do in Oyo State. Oyo State is a pace-setter state. Is the pace-setter state in Nigeria. So I'm supposed to be here as an attorney general at a meeting for attorneys general in Nigeria, where issues relating to corruption is going to be discussed. So when we go back to our state, we continue the good work that we've been doing. It's as simple.
All right. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
All right. So basically, We've attended this conference today. What is in it for people of Enugu State?
Well, this conference is under the auspices of the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, which was organized to bring the various state attorneys general to discuss on ways of strengthening the capacity of the federal agency, ICPC, in their work fighting corruption, and of course, for states to leverage on good relationship with ICPC to also address the issues of corruption in the state. Of course, you know that corruption is multifaceted matter. It's with very far-reaching consequences. And of course, you know that there are factors that deepen corruption in our society. So these were some of the things that we looked at. How do we address the issue of corruption at the level of preventive rather than focusing on prosecuting crimes related to corruption? So we looked at working on self-reliance for the state and the federal government, economic self-reliance, because you know that most incidences of corruption relate to economics. That is, factors that are economic in nature. So if someone is unable to fend for himself or herself with the resources available, of course, the person would have to devise means of addressing or meeting basic needs. And of course, in doing that, corruption may be one of the results. So we discussed things that relate to helping boost the economy at the state level so that people will become economically good enough or buoyant to at least meet their basic needs. So, and of course, in doing that, it will reduce corruption. Another thing that we looked at was on the matter of using technology to redress corruption. So I have various instances in the state, in Enugu State, where we're already deploying technology, all right, in the conduct of government businesses. It's called e-governance, and it has addressed to a very large extent the issues of corruption. We can even use the justice sector, where we're working on e-filing of processes so that you don't even have to interface with officials of the court to even talk about whether there will be corruption or not. And so these are some of the things that we have discussed, and we have gained knowledge by sharing knowledge. And it would, of course, help the various states. But for my state, I've taken away knowledge, taken away some resources that we would, of course, deploy in our efforts to address the issue of economic well-being of our people towards reducing the incidences of corruption.
All right, so before I let you go, the issues around corruption, politics generally is local. Yes. So we've talked about corruption from different angles, federal, state, but let's bring this back to local government. And one of the things we've seen in local government in terms of corruption has to do with the local corruption has to start with land grabbing and all of those issues. It now begins to evolve. Tell us, what is Enugu State doing in this regard? Will there be policies that will be driven down to ensure that land grabbers get punished? Because that's the basics of corruption. It starts metamorphosed, it now goes up. Tell us what Enugu State government is doing in this regard.
Of course, you're aware that there are various forms of corruption, and these various manifestations of corruption would have to be dealt differently. So each circumstance would warrant separate approach. So in the matters of land grabbing, especially the powerful grabbing the land of those that are not very powerful, those that can't resist them, all right? Of course, it's a form of corruption when you use power or privilege to oppress or intimidate the less privileged or those you are more privileged than. So in our state, we see that as a public policy issue. We see it as a public good matter. So we have already taken steps to enact a law called the Property Protection Law 2024. And we're already in the process of implementing that law. So what that law seeks to address is the matter of people that are powerful, people either financially or politically, going into land belonging to others to grab the land, all right, using all manner of tactics that can even use law enforcement agent. They can connive with a particular member of the community, all right, to take the land belonging to communities or belonging to a family. So the law not only prohibits that, but also prescribes offenses. And not only prescribes offenses, but also establishes in the office of the Attorney General of the state a unit that works as a task force to implement the law and without first having resort to the court. So if someone has a complaint about the land that he has interest in, legal interest in, or he owns, all right, having somebody trespass with force, the person can just report instead of retaliating, because that has led to incidences of conflict, communal clashes, and all manner of violence. All right, even corruption and fraudulent dealings on land. Some community would have land and then they will resell. That's a form of corruption, of course. So this law provides, all right, mechanisms to redress that. So if someone owns a land and someone goes into that land, instead of that person that owns the land or has interest in the land going into that place that the work is going on to violently stop it, and of course violence may trigger violence. So the person would report to the task force unit, who will of course go in to investigate quickly. Of course, we have the repository of title document across the state. We know who owns what by investigation. We'll know, and then based on the powers granted the office of the Attorney General and the task force, all right, the persons involved would be invited, and of course the matter will be resolved. And if the person that is in the land unlawfully persists, of course, there are also instrumentalities of the law that could be used against such persons. And of course, it prohibits even the use of local militia or thugs to enforce decisions related to land. So these are all forms of ways that we're trying to maintain justice and equity, address societal problems, and letting people not to take laws into their hands.
Well, there are different angles to this story. I wish we have more time. We'll be able to talk about this, but this is how far we can go on Signature Morning. I am Godwin Sunday.